Maverick News presents The Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Ukraine Council, a forum for crisis consultations and decision-making, where we will meet as equals. And I look forward to having the inaugural meeting of the Council tomorrow with President Zelensky. Third, we reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan. This would change Ukraine's membership path from a two-step process to a one-step process. We also made clear that we will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree and conditions are met. This is a strong package for Ukraine and a clear path towards its membership in NATO. Allies have also approved the most comprehensive defense plans since the end of the Cold War. These are designed to counter the two main threats we face, Russia and terrorism. Under our new plans, NATO aims to have 300,000 troops at high readiness, including substantial air and naval power. Robust deterrence and defense requires a robust industrial base. So leaders endorse the new Defense Production Action Plan. This will accelerate joint procurement, boost interoperability, and generate investment and production capacity. To do all this, we need to invest more in defense. Our latest estimate show that defense expenditure by European allies and Canada will increase by 8.3% in 2023. This is the biggest increase in decades. Since 2014, they will have invested an extra $450 billion in defense. 11 allies now reach or exceed the 2% benchmark, and we expect this number will rise substantially next year. Today, allies made an enduring commitment to invest at least 2% of gross domestic product annually in defense, and to do more urgently to meet their commitments. NATO leaders also addressed China. China is not our adversary, and we should continue to engage. But Beijing's increasing assertiveness affects our security. China is increasingly challenging the rules-based international order, refusing to condemn Russia's war against Ukraine, threatening Taiwan, and carrying out substantial military buildup. China's nuclear modernization is unprecedented in speed and scale, and being carried out with no transparency. Allies agreed to continue working together to protect against China's coercive behavior. And tomorrow, we will meet the leaders of Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea, as well as the European Union, because we are stronger and safer when we stand together. And with that, I'm ready to take a few questions.
We'll start with Washington Post, there in the middle. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Michael Birnbaum from the Washington Post. President Zelensky, of course, issued a tweet in the middle of your talks that criticized the language that you just agreed to on Ukraine's path toward membership. I was wondering what your thought was when you saw what he was saying about what NATO was agreeing to, and what your message would be for Ukrainians who are disappointed by this language. Thanks a lot.
What allies have agreed today is a strong, united, and positive message to Ukraine about enduring support, but also a positive message on the path forward for membership. And this includes this package of practical support to enable full interoperability between Ukrainian armed forces and NATO forces, the establishment of the NATO-Ukraine Council, and then the decision to remove the requirement for a membership action plan, which actually means that instead of 2 steps to become a member, there will now be 1 step. We also made it clear that the invitation will be issued when conditions are met. Then I would like to add that on top of that, of course, allies are also providing substantial military support, because the most urgent task now is to ensure that Ukraine prevails, because unless Ukraine prevails, there is no membership issue to be discussed at all. And therefore, I welcome the military support that the allies have provided now for months, actually starting back in 2014, and then since the full-fledged invasion in February last year, substantially stepping up their support. And just over the last few days, allies have made substantial new announcements. France has announced that they will deliver long-range cruise missiles. Germany just announced a new package with air defense and armored vehicles. And the US made yet another big announcement of more military support. And many other allies have made different types of support, including the establishment of coalition to provide training for F-16 fighter jets. So put together, this is a strong message which sends a positive and united message to Kiev.
We'll go to the Ukrainian news agency in the 3rd row. Yeah.
Dmitry Shkurko, National News Agency of Ukraine here. Thank you for the floor. Question, just follow up my colleague Can we expect today a final communique on Ukraine, and we can expect it tomorrow? And could you please specify what kind of conditions Ukraine still need to fulfill to initiate the accession procedure and to get an invitation? Thank you.
So we have agreed the communique, and we also agreed the package for Ukraine. That was agreed by the leaders, and I referred the main elements now. The practical support, the political ties with the NATO-Ukraine Council, full interoperability, the removal of the membership action plan, and then, of course, also all the different things that allies are providing bilaterally, including with the new announcements we have heard today and the last few days. I have been in close contact and regular contact, and NATO allies have also been in regular contacts with Ukrainian officials. I've discussed this also with President Zelensky, and I look forward to meet him tonight, and then also to have the inaugural meeting of the NATO Ukraine Council tomorrow, where I will set out the package of the three elements, bringing Ukraine closer to NATO, and this is a strong package.
Okay, Reuters. Over there.
Oh.
Andrew, maybe you can just ask your question.
Andrew Gray from Reuters, Secretary General, to come back to President Zelensky's remarks. He said it would be absurd if a time frame is not set neither for invitation nor for Ukraine's membership. How would you respond to that specific point, and why have allies not set out a time frame today?
What we have agreed is a very substantive package with many different elements that helps to move Ukraine closer to NATO, help them to move towards NATO membership. And this is partly very practical support on, for instance, interoperability, and reforms, defense sector reforms and interoperability are among the conditions which are important for membership. So that's a practical way of moving them and moving Ukraine closer to NATO. Then we also send a strong political message with the language on membership, including the language which is now in the communique on invitation. So there's never been a stronger message from NATO at any time, both when it comes to the political message on the path forward for membership and the concrete support from NATO allies, military support, but also the practical support on how to ensure full interoperability. And if you look at all the membership processes, there have not been time lines for those processes. They are conditions-based, has always been.
Okay, we'll go to the gentleman here in the second row.
Lauri Nurmi, Iltalehti from Finland, Mr. Secretary General. The Baltic Sea becomes NATO's inland sea. NATO puts 300,000 new troops on high readiness. What does all this mean for frontline countries like Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland? And what is NATO's message to Mr. Putin and Russia? How historic is this moment? Thank you.
It is historic that both Finland and Sweden will become members of NATO. Finland is already a full member, and with the agreement that President Erdogan and Prime Minister Kristersson and I were able to make last night, Sweden is also Sweden has also become a full member of the alliance. This is his historic. It's important for Finland. It's important for Sweden, but it is also in particular important for the Baltic region, because when you look at the map, you realize that, for instance, the ability to reinforce the Baltic region is very much improved by the fact that we now have Finland and soon also Sweden as full members. And that will be reflected in our defense plans, in our exercises, in our capability targets, and everything else we do as an alliance. So it makes the whole alliance stronger, and it makes especially the Baltic region safer. It sends the message that NATO's door is open. It sends the message that it's for NATO allies to decide on enlargement. It's not for Moscow to deny sovereign nations the sovereign right to choose their own path. And this is, again, something we have demonstrated not only in words, but also in deeds by now allowing 2 new members and sending a message to Ukraine, which is stronger than any message NATO has ever sent before on membership for Ukraine.
We have the gentleman over there in the 3rd row. Over there.
European Pravda, Ukraine. Secretary General, I would ask you to clarify a bit on conditions. I understand that you cannot list all of them. It's probably not clear, but maybe you see how these conditions would be defined, agreed, because I'm afraid that it would be read that NATO has lifted membership action plan, but have invented another membership action plan with another name, which is conditions. So it's like making a bit of fake achievement. Thank you.
No, what we say in the communique is that Ukraine has moved beyond the requirement for a membership action plan, just because Ukraine has come much closer to NATO. I was actually attending the NATO summit in Bucharest in 2008 as a Norwegian Prime Minister, and I remember very well the discussion there. And of course, the discussion now is totally different for many reasons, and not least because Ukraine is under full-fledged attack by Russia, but also because Ukraine has come so much closer to this alliance over all these years. Because especially since 2014, when NATO allies start to train and equip Ukrainian armed forces, but even more so after February last year, Ukraine has demonstrated capabilities, skills, and has been more and more integrated with NATO. This is also a consequence of the equipment which NATO allies are delivering, because, for instance, when we deliver modern battle tanks or advanced air defense systems, a consequence of that is also more interoperability, more NATO standards, doctrines, and a gradual movement from the Soviet era doctrines, standards, and equipment to NATO, just by the fact that so much equipment is now delivered. And of course, when we start training with training of pilots for F-16s, it will even more add to this important interoperability, which has always been a requirement for NATO membership. So this is moving Ukraine closer to NATO and to NATO membership, and also reflecting the fact that NATO has come much closer. Well, we have conditions partly in Article 10 of the Transatlantic Treaty, the Washington Treaty, and then, of course, at the end of the day, it has to be allies that assess whether conditions are fully met or not, and that's exactly what allies then have to agree, and therefore we also refer to both the conditions, but also the need for all allies to agree. That's the way we make decisions in NATO.
Politico. Politico here.
Thank you, Secretary General. Just to follow up on this important topic, I have in front of me the text from 2008 from Bucharest, which we've all been reading and rereading over the past weeks. NATO welcomes Ukraine's and Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations for membership in NATO. We agreed today that these countries will become members of NATO. So if you were explaining just to the average citizen in the alliance and in Ukraine, people who are really keen to understand what was decided today, how would you explain the difference between the text that was agreed in Bucharest in 2008 and the specific language that was agreed today?
There are several differences. One important difference is that I think the next sentence, or at least a bit further down, we say that the next step is membership action plan. And that's exactly what we removed today. And at every summit since 2008, we have said Ukraine will become a member. The next step is membership action plan. Now we remove that. So that's actually turning this process, which has always been two steps, into one step. That actually moves Ukraine closer to membership, and it's a significant difference from the 2008 language, which has been reiterated at every summit since 2008. And it has been also a process in NATO to make that decision, because it was not a straightforward decision to make. I'm glad that allies agreed, and it was the main element in my package I launched in Oslo in May at the informal meeting. Then it was, what should I say, there were questions asked whether that was to move too fast. And therefore, I'm glad that since May, since we started this discussion of removing a map requirement, all allies today have agreed to remove a map requirement. So that's difference number one. Difference number two is that we actually now have a program for how to help and support Ukraine move closer to NATO. And that is the interoperability, the multi-year program, but also the strengthening of our political ties, and also reference to that the foreign minister will, also in the text we agreed today, will regularly assess progress. So this, together with the fact that the substantial delivery of equipment and training just by itself moves Ukraine closer to membership, is a big difference. There is one more difference, and that is that in 2008, Ukraine was quite far from NATO. What has happened since 2008 has already moved them much closer to us.
Swedish radio, second row.
Mr. Secretary General, you mentioned the Swedish membership and you said it's historic, but we still don't know when the ratification will be in the parliaments in Ankara and in Hungary, which day. What do you know about that? And can you please tell us something about the feelings in the meeting hall today when you met the other heads of state and you have the Swedish Prime Minister together with you? What was the feeling today after green light yesterday from President Erdogan?
Of course, it is for the Turkish parliament to decide exactly when they finalize the ratification. President Erdogan made it clear yesterday that he will submit the ratification papers for Swedish accession as soon as possible. But then, of course, also as a former parliamentarian, I think we should respect that every parliament has their own procedures. And also when there has been not very controversial enlargement, this has sometimes been domestic processes. But what makes the agreement yesterday historic is that, of course, it is a clear commitment from President Erdogan that he will submit the papers for ratification, and that he will work with the Grand National Assembly, the Turkish Parliament, to ensure ratification. And this is historic, and that was also reflected in the meeting today. I think that almost all allies welcomed Ulf Kristersson. First of all, they welcomed Sauli Niinistö, the president of Finland, because this was his first NATO summit. He attended as president of Finland as a full member of the alliance. And then allies also expressed their welcome to Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, expressing that they welcomed the agreement yesterday, and all were looking forward to having also Sweden as a full member as soon as possible. So I felt the kind of historic sentiment in the room that was reflected in what the allies said. And of course, I welcome that message from all of them.
Okay, we'll take the last question from ARD. Over there.
Thank you very much, Markus Kreis with ARD. Apparently, there's a big need to better understand what are the conditions. I try it the other way around. President Biden said in his interview with CNN that Ukraine was still short of some requirements for joining, including over democratization. What are conditions Ukraine clearly does not meet now to get the invitation? Thank you.
I think we have to understand that there are at least two dimensions which we're addressing. One is the kind of the level or to what extent they have been able to modernize the defense and security institutions, to strengthen their governance, including fighting corruption. And these has been issues which has been addressed at every enlargement of NATO, because we want good governance, we want modern defense and security institutions, and we want armed forces which are interoperable with NATO. We are addressing that, both the modernization of the defense and security institutions and interoperability with the multi-year program we agreed. Then there is another dimension, and that is, of course, the fact that there's a war going on in Ukraine. The Ukrainian forces have demonstrated courage, skill, competence that has impressed the whole world. But at the same time, there is a full-fledged war. And therefore, I think all allies agree that when a war is going on, that's not the time for making Ukraine a full member of the alliance. So these are two different things. The question of governance, corruption, interoperability, which is an issue regardless of whether it's a war or not. And then the other issue is the ongoing war in Ukraine. And we need to address both of them. At the end of the day, it has to be allies that assess, as we always do when we have enlargement, whether the conditions are met, and then make the decision on an invitation. The important with the communique today is that we have the tools to ensure that Ukraine moves towards membership. We have, for the first time, invitation as part of the language, and we have for the first time removed the requirements for membership action plan. So this is a big step, never been stronger language from NATO on membership, and never been more specific announcement of what we're actually going to do to ensure that that Ukraine becomes a member of the alliance.
Thank you very
Okay, so that's sort of clear as mud, because it's vague. It is clear that they want Ukraine, but how, when, it's all muddy language. They've wrapped it up in a bow and they presented it to the world and to Ukraine, to Zelensky, and they said, hey, now there's no need for an action plan, but they still have these conditions. There's still an action plan. It's still, they can't grant Ukraine NATO membership right now because they're at war. And it's clear they don't know how this is going to turn out. So they're stuck. They want to, but they won't because they're not sure with which way this war is going to go. And an attack on Ukraine means an attack on all NATO. Now, if they made Ukraine a NATO country now, and Russia wins that war, they would therefore be obligated, I think, to intervene, become directly involved, and fight to the finish in order to save Ukraine. All those other countries would have to go to war. They don't want to. They're afraid. So No membership right now. Status quo on the membership because they don't want to risk it. They're not sure. Zelensky wants them to commit because he knows that membership ensures that they'll have to go all in and fight all the way to the Russian border if the Ukrainian personnel are all killed off. And it ensures that they have to bring in NATO troops. They don't want to do that. That should tell you something. This war is not going as well as NATO and the United States had hoped. It's still hard to tell exactly where things stand because there's so much rhetoric on both sides. One side saying the other side doesn't stand a chance, and the same things being said on the other side. And unless you're actually on the ground there, it's difficult to know. So you're taking cues like the ones that I'm taking from this messaging and this news conference, and you're extrapolating and speculating. But that's what I'm getting from this. Maybe you're getting something different. What are you saying in the chat about this? And the conditions are not clear. He's not really spelling them out. It's all vague. It's vague for a reason. They don't want to commit because they're not sure that they're going to win. So they don't want to make it. I would say they don't want to spell it out in very clear language and say, here you go, Vladimir Zelensky, just do X, Y, and Z, step 1, 2, 3, and you're in. Leave it vague so that they can meander. What are we saying in here? They poured too much money into Ukraine. To turn back now, says Chris. Yes, I see what you're saying. And Johnny Swinestein says, Elia Ben Judah, Hitler kicked Rothschild Bank out and printed Germany its own money. Well, we know that the BRICS nations are now committed to the creation of an actual gold-backed currency. So that's a confirmed development this week. Steve is back. Steve Harvey. Hello, Steve. Welcome back. And Lori says, howdy, Steve Harvey. Me too. And Gary says, nuclear war is better. This BS would be over in minutes. I don't know about that. And I was sort of thinking about the whole nuclear conflict option over the last 24 hours. I'm not so sure. I think this has been, as much as anything else, an information war. And I think that wars in general right now are being fought as information wars. We're in the middle of one right now. And all of these leaders, the people who run these powerful countries, I think they understand that the best way to take over a country is not to use the military. It's to simply cause unrest and overturn the government using information warfare by getting people out into the streets, protesting, destabilizing a country, and then moving in, or even manipulating elections and getting your own candidates elected so that you don't have to fire a shot. That's the Achilles heel of a democracy, is democracy itself. And look what they're doing in Ukraine. You think about what NATO has been doing. The expansion of NATO country by country by country, taking over one country after another. And I literally mean take over without firing any shots. Sweden, Finland, the newest countries to join NATO membership, right? Did they fire any shots? No. But now they're under the NATO umbrella. Ukraine, 2014, a coup, overturned the government. Now they're at war with Russia. This is a country that used to be part of the Soviet bloc. Now it's a NATO country. Did NATO have to go to war to get it? Not in the conventional sense, not in the kinetic sense. No. They took over. Essentially, it became a de facto NATO country, part of the European Union, without actually becoming part of it on paper. But they're part of it now, aren't they? We're funding the war, putting in all the weapons, and we didn't have to go to war ourselves to take over the country. Isn't that a better way to do it? Information warfare. Convince the citizens that change is needed, and you supply the change, and you supply the new leadership. One country after another. And now they're right up against Russia's doorstep and applying pressure there. That's the way to fight a war. And that's the way it's done today. Let's see here. Justin Trudeau got out the wallet, our wallet, the taxpayers' wallet in Vilnius today at the NATO summit. We'll come back and we'll go back there and listen to what JT had to say as he was spending more Canadian taxpayer dollars.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So Justin Trudeau, I mean, I almost hate to use this phrasing because it sounds flippant, almost unprofessional, but it's so fitting. I mean, it just is. He's like the poster boy for the globalist movement. So there he is at the NATO summit, and he's promising, and we showed you this yesterday, he's promising more funding for more troops in Lithuania. Well, today we had over 10 hours of conversation and speeches at the NATO summit. And about a quarter of the way through the day today, we got this from Justin Trudeau. Let's just pick it up and, well, you can assess for yourself what he has to say.
From this very real war that's going on right now is feeding in not just our need to, as Rob said, continue to step up on more ammunition, on more procurement, on better preparation for what's next, but actually understanding what is most impactful and effective. And there's an expression that everyone's always preparing the equipment they wish they'd had in the last conflict instead of looking towards the next one. And that's where the hybrid warfare, the disinformation, the misinformation, the cyber capacities, all the different things that are coming together, even responding to the ecocide that was the destruction of the dam. These kinds of things are coloring everything we do and everything we have to think about what could be coming next.
Absolutely. Prime Minister Karas, how do you feel about Ukraine being an additive to your defense?
Absolutely. I mean, as Justin was saying, today we're training Ukrainians, and I'm convinced that tomorrow they'll be training us, because which army in Europe has now the experience of actually fighting the Russians? It is the Ukrainians, and they're learning. They're surprisingly, or maybe not so surprising, they're fantastically adaptable to all kinds of weapon systems. Imagine the complexity. They're getting all kinds of different equipment, and they're able to train up to use many different. So within our own armies, you have one type of system, and everyone learns that one type of system. They're adapting to all the different systems that we have, which is actually a challenge in terms of simplicity of platforms that we have to think about in NATO. But they will be eventually training us. But the point of NATO and Ukraine's future role in NATO is remember that Russia only understands strength and power. And the reason they're fighting the war in Ukraine is because they wrongly but perceived Ukraine as being weak and an easy target because it was in the gray area of not in NATO. NATO's value add is, of course, our preparedness and the fact that Russia understands that preparedness. Now, regarding Belarus, we in Latvia have been, it's 2 years now that we have daily experience with the hybrid attacks physically on our borders. So the Belarusian government organizes planes full of people from third countries and physically moves them to the border, tries and sometimes succeeds in cutting the fences and encouraging, if not forcing people to illegally enter into the European Union. So they have effectively helped us to train ourselves to have a seamless interaction between the border guard, police, and the National Guard with surveillance, et cetera, where we're fully aware of this. So the threat is very real. The threat of disinformation, the threat of cyber is real. In Latvia, we have the Stratcom Center of Excellence. In Estonia, it's the cyber, and it's maybe no coincidence that in our countries we have these two centers. These are very real threats. But with Wagner coming into, or potentially coming into Belarus, I don't think that anyone seriously thinks that even 5,000 or 6,000 soldiers would now be a direct military threat to NATO. But imagine even 500 well-trained, ruthless mercenaries attempting the migrant route, and what would they do if they came into Europe? So our awareness on the border in Latvia, in Lithuania, and in Poland, all of our services, they're in constant contact and observing the groups who tend to try one place, then another, then a third place. So there's very well situational awareness on our side, but we need to keep that heightened because that threat is not going anywhere. And with Prigozhin and if anyone thinks that, Putin is now weak, maybe on some level, that is, if there are two bulldogs fighting and one is weaker, it doesn't mean the other one is a poodle. It means the other one is still a bulldog. And we're not expecting any lessening of the threat. So we don't see anything changing in Russia, shall we say, for the better. So that means that on our side, literally on our side of the fence, we have to up the game of preparedness and just keep our eyes open. And I think all of our eyes, not only us in the Baltics, but all of our eyes are now open.
Absolutely. Prime Minister Kallas.
That's a
Actually,
long
I don't have a lot to add. I mean, it was already said by previous speakers. I would just add one thing. I mean, reading about the NATO enlargement and when the Visegrad countries were accepted to NATO, then one of the German representatives, and I don't remember who exactly it was, said that it would be let's accept the Poles because or Poland because it would be so much better when the Poles are fighting for us and not the Germans. And actually, that could be the same quote right now. I mean, the Ukrainians are fighting for us so that the Americans. Canadians, Latvians, Estonians don't have to do that. So that's why I think the point that you made, that they bring something to the table. And as Christiani said, I mean, they are the only army that has actual experience of fighting the Russians right now. That is the biggest threat.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome any questions. There's a microphone right in the.
Well, that's enough of that. So they're talking about, it's a foregone conclusion. Ukraine will join. Ukraine is already part of NATO. It is under the NATO umbrella. It's in, just not on paper. Because if things go south, and it looks like maybe they are, these countries don't really want to go in there and lose any of their own sons and daughters. Or get any further deeper in than they already are, is sort of the point. That's kind of where we're at tonight. So let me take another break here. I'll gather my thoughts and we'll come right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So NATO is supposed to be a defensive alliance. But by having Finland and Sweden join and Ukraine, it means that Russia will now have an even longer border that it will need to defend to assert to protect its sovereignty. So if NATO is defensive, then why is it that Russia has to defend even more geographic territory in a more assertive way? Because NATO is pushing right up against, because it's not just defensive. It's been offensive. They've been claiming taking over country after country after country, and we just saw three more fall to NATO. Sweden, Finland, Ukraine. Takeovers. It's a new kind of warfare. Smart. And it's all about PR, right? Justin Trudeau. Oh, this is kind of funny. Okay, here's a photo, a group photo taken at NATO. They did their, because it's like, let's get a photo, everybody, and everybody gather around. And they got the school photographer out. Here we go. So there's this photo that they took. This is off the NATO website. Okay. So that's the actual official photo. And if you look, and it's hard to see it because I can't really expand this out anymore. But Trudeau's over here, way over. Well, it's on my left. Okay. So there he is in the front in the gray suit. That's Trudeau. But I noticed on Twitter today that there were posts where Trudeau was nowhere to be found. Here we go. Here's what I'm talking about. This is a photo or a copy of that photo or a photo. And where's Trudeau? He's not there. The poster boy for the globalist movement, not there. These people, where's Trudeau? It appears that some people are cropping him out. Multiple posts today where they've cropped Trudeau out of the shot. It seems the prime minister with the carefully coiffed hair is falling out of favor with some people. I think that's funny. But true. Is it news? It is now because I decided that it was newsworthy here, newsworthy enough for us to pay attention. You know what else I wanted to take a look at today? I was going back and reviewing some stuff that was taking me back to the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020. It was business reasons. I was just thinking back to that period of time and some of the stuff that was going on with me, just because I had to, I had some documents and things that I was working on. I had to kind of remember timelines. So I just thought I'd take a look at, I opened up the Worldometer website where I used to go almost every day at the height of the pandemic to look and see what's going on. So I thought we would take a quick look tonight again, just to see where we're at with COVID stats. Here it is. This is Canada now, okay? Because we'll look at the US in just a sec. But just out of habit, because I live in Canada, I would always look at the Canadian statistics. So total cases, 4,690,486 as of yesterday. Daily new cases. Now, this is the one that everybody was kind of fixated on for a long time. So you go back to, February 2020, 0, and then it pops up March 24th, 701. 1,300, 1,500, 1,600, 2,760 new cases. And people were flipping out. And they started to lock us down. October 2020, November, 6,000, 5,000, 6,000. They were locking us down. 5,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 12,000, 8,000, 5,000. And then you get into the summer in 2021, and the numbers dropped like a rock to hundreds instead of thousands for the summer. And they locked us down hard. Down, they locked us hard, lockdowns. You will not go to the park. You will not go to the beach. You will wear your mask. You must submit, peasant. 3,800. You get into the fall. Numbers started to come back. October 2021, November, December, 3,000, 3,600. And then the vaccines came to save us all. 2021, January, 25,000, 28,000. It hit a peak of, what was this one? 55,350 on January 10th, 2022. Yeah, good thing we had those vaccines. Imagine what it would have been like had we not had the vaccines. 55,000 new cases, January 2022. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad they saved us. 14,000 February 2022, and the numbers came down. March 2022, 2 years after the first case. 8,000, 6,000, 7,000, 13,000 in April of 2022, 11,000. May, the spring, 2022, 15,000. They saved us. They saved us. They stamped it out. Their zero COVID policy was so safe and effective. October 2022, 3,100, 2,200. Now we got different strains. They say the newer strains were not as serious as the first versions of the virus. January 2023, 1,500. February, 1,500, 1,400. March, 1,200. So there it is, 2023, March. 3 years later, still 1,000 new cases. Not being locked down like we were, though. Thank goodness. April. And then there's a gap in here. I guess they stopped testing or something. I don't know, but there's a big gap from April until May. Much of April not recorded. Then we're into May, and probably because they're adding cases that were not recorded previously, 4,000, 3,000, 3,500. And until now, we're getting 500 or 600 a day at the end of May. June 1st, 626. Oh, I'm so glad they had that thingy to save us. Active cases today, 6,487. At the height, oh, thank goodness for that vaccine, 422,000. They say 52,912 people have died in Canada from the virus. Here's the daily death count. That's maybe even more important. Daily deaths back in early 2020 hit in March. By April, we had 174 a day, 156, 180, 175, 130, 103, 126. Then the warmer weather came. It was like 7, 9, 5, 4, 7. People thought it was maybe over, but then it came back. Oh, and they got the vaccines and it came back, and it went lower in the summers, in summer months, warm weather. More in the winter, probably when people are inside more. And then daily deaths, 107, 174. Until now, 7, 8, 15, 31, 28. I don't know. I see the occasional report now where they say that, oh, there's a new strain probably coming back, and fear porn. So far, we haven't had to deal with that, not, this year. I hope that things don't deteriorate to the point we were at before. Let's take a look at the USA. 107 million cases, 1.16 million deaths. Wow. And it's a little different to read the US stats because it's state by state. And of course, the United States has a much bigger population. It's not like you can't just compare the US to Canada on something like this because the conditions from state to state, even city to city, are so different. The conditions. You even have warmer weather in the south in Florida and colder weather up in the north, say in Minnesota. So it's a totally different set of circumstances and demographics and climate issues. Florida, total cases 7 million, total deaths 88,000, active cases 10,000, deaths per 1 million population 4,139. Let's scroll down, see if we can see some graphs here. Daily new cases in the USA. The graph is a little bit different here. I think that's again because you're dealing with different climate, wider range of environmental conditions. But again, hitting right around the same time, April 2020, 35,000. And the biggest spike again in January of 2022, where daily new cases hit, 897,221. And if you look at the graph, the number of new cases is way down now. It's the summertime, of course. But all you have to do is even just go back to this past winter, 53,000 new cases, go all the way back here to the beginning when they were locking us down, 29,000, 35,000. By July of 2020, 76,000. The numbers continued to climb. You get into the winter, though, that first winter, 209,000. But you compare apples to apples, you go to that summer of 2021, 18,000. Look what you're getting now. March, April, 19,000. May, 10,000, 9,000. So, if it was strictly by the numbers, I'm not sure things are all that much different in a lot of ways, except that the virus maybe isn't as serious now. And deaths total 1,168,502, according to these stats supplied by government. And you see the daily deaths, though, right? This is, I guess, the most important graph. And pretty high over here at the beginning. It peaked here again in 2021 in January, where they were getting, 4,000. You come all the way over here to today in June, July, 71, 62, 6107. And the virus has certainly evolved over time. And as viruses tend to do, they become less lethal over time. Because as empirical evidence has shown through history, as viruses evolve, they become less deadly because they don't actually, through nature, the viruses don't really want to kill their host. If they kill their host, they end up killing themselves. So nature has a way of having the viruses slowly evolve, or maybe quickly even, so that they might still make the host sick, but not kill the host. So thank goodness for that. And hopefully it doesn't mutate back into something that is deadly to the point where the government feels like they have to lock us down again, which drove me freaking nuts. Just about over the edge sometimes. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw some numbers back at you because it seems like the attention on this matter has been shifted. It's that issue that really created the freedom movement, right? That's what put it on my radar. I was always very freedom oriented, civil rights, human rights, Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, constitutional rights, we the people. That was the stuff, man. That's where the government overreached. That's what got everybody upset. The lockdowns, the masks, the mandates. That's what fueled all of the pushback against the government from the beginning. And it's like, I hardly hear about it these days. I mean, some stuff, right? But not like we did. Now everybody's focused on other things. And yet, coming in under the radar just within the last week, again, focus on this legislation in Quebec that is oriented, I believe it's Bill S2, which has been passed. And it gives the government the power to, if you read the language, and I have read it, it appears, but I don't want to say that this is cast in stone. I'm looking for a more learned legal opinion on this. But that document, that legislation does have wording that could lead you to believe that the government in Quebec has given itself the power to forcibly give people the thing in the arm in the name of public safety, which is the issue. I mean, that's the big one, right? I mean, forcibly detain someone, take them, the language is something to the effect of, and this I have to remember because I've been reading it over the past couple of days, but to take to a determined place or something like that for injection is what's in the legislation. It's scary stuff. And it shows you that this issue is not being resolved. We're not locked down right now. The mask mandates are off. Not everything has returned to normal. It feels pretty normal when you're out, but I still feel that weight of government on my shoulders every day because I know that really legislatively in this country, and I think even in the US, very little has changed. I guess the main thing that has changed is public attitude. People, I think, if they were to be told they had to lock down right now, they probably would not be as compliant. They'd probably have to work a little harder to scare the pants off people in order to get everyone to comply. I think fewer people would. But it was a test, wasn't it? It was a test of our moral fiber as a society when that pandemic struck and the government issued those orders, thou shalt lock down and thou shalt shun thy neighbor if thy neighbor fails to get the jab. Call the snitch line and report your neighbor. And people did. You know, when you grew up and before the pandemic, if you asked someone, what would you do if you lived in Germany at the time of, World War II? What would you do? People, I'd never follow along with that. Then along comes the pandemic. It was a test. And what kind of headlines did we see in the newspapers? Let the unjabbed die. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And even now, where I live, if you need a heart transplant or any kind of a transplant procedure, if you ain't got the thingy in the arm, you ain't getting that transplant. Yeah, we as a society, we failed the test. We failed with flying colors. Sad days, dark days still upon us. And look at what we've got now. Look at what has happened. The polarization, the hate, the division. It's not as pronounced. It's under the surface every day. I still smell it when I'm out and I'm meeting people, and I still see the occasional person wearing a mask outside, driving around in their car alone with a mask on, walking around in stores. Still see it. I guess if it makes you feel better, have at it. It's okay. Me? No, never did. Didn't do the thingy. But I was so disappointed in what I saw going on in our society, man. The way people treated each other. And it screwed with everybody's head, mine included. Made you angry. Didn't matter what side you were on. You were on that side or the other side. Everybody was upset. Everybody was angry. Everybody was locked down, isolated. Screwed with people's minds. I think as a result today, we have a mental health crisis on our hands with many people. Depression, just overall psychotic behavior even. It's changed people. I think it's changed all of us, some more than others. And it's made people very susceptible as well to social media messaging and emotional manipulation through social media, regardless of what side you're on. I think people just get amped up more and more and more these days. Social media was powerful before, but it's even more effective now because whatever happened during that pandemic, it screwed with people's minds. It's rewired everyone to some degree. And we'll never be the same again. I don't think humanity will ever be the same again as long as we still have this technology and evolving technology, information technology like this, because they're waging information warfare on us every single day now. And it's coming through these devices, through our computers. And it saddens me. And actually, I feel the weight of that, and I feel sometimes so depressed as a result of it. Even today, beautiful day outside here. And I'm so tired of the messaging that I'm bombarded with every single day. We're all going to die every single day. It's depressing as you know what. People are just so angry about everything anymore. I get it. I understand. And afraid, scared of everything. And I understand that too. Talk about this legislation in Quebec. People are freaking over it. Anybody who's seen it. It was back in April when that was dealt with in the legislature in Quebec. But now people are like taking note of it for whatever reason. And there are fears that that kind of language in similar kind of legislation will spread across Canada and maybe even to the US. Healthcare is a provincial jurisdiction in Canada. But when you get that kind of language, it's heavy. And I don't know if it'd stand up in court. I don't know if it would stand up to a constitutional challenge, but I suspect it would. If indeed that is what the language actually means. It seems like it, but I think you can almost interpret it in a variety of different ways. That's why I'd like to get a strong legal opinion on it. I'm going to try and do that over the next number of days because I've seen other people commenting on it, and it's concerning, but we'll see. I'll tell you this, though. Whatever that legislation says, and regardless of whether that kind of language finds its way into similar legislation, even where I live. I'll tell you this. Maybe you're with me, maybe you're not. But if somebody were to come to my door and tell me that they were going to strap me down, wheel me away on a stretcher, put me in a straitjacket or something so that they could forcibly do something like perform a medical procedure on me, don't think so. Not going to happen. Ever. Ever. It's not right. Should never do that to a person. People have the right. I don't care what any judge says. I don't care what any court says. I don't care what any politician says, because that's what legislation is. It's a politician or politicians getting together and deciding what the law is. Doesn't mean they're always right. And yes, they act with the authority of the people. But when it comes to something like this, I don't give a damn. My body, my choice. Your body, your choice. Collectivism sucks. That's why. Individual rights and freedoms. The right to decide for yourself. That's integral to everything. All the crap going on out there right now, all the fighting in the streets and all these other things, we've lost sight of that. Everyone's distracted again. Well, UFOs, unidentified flying objects, weather balloons, China. Individual rights and freedoms. That's what it was about in the beginning. That's what it needs to be about now. My right to choose. And my right to choose as a parent, if I have kids, what happens to them. Get your heads screwed on straight, folks. Refocus on the real issue. Individual rights and freedoms. So enshrined in the constitutions of Canada and the United States, regardless of the legal shenanigans that they might be playing. Things going on to circumvent those individual rights and freedoms. Everybody's out there fighting about all these other things. That's what it comes down to. And that's what happened during the pandemic. They took that choice away, or did their damnedest to do it. I was fortunate. Before the pandemic, I removed myself from much of the system with my own business. So I wasn't dependent. I didn't have to get on my knees to a corporate employer and beg to keep my job and submit to a thing in the arm in order to keep my paycheck. Independent. Individual. Dip into the system as I need to. Stay independent on the outside edge of it so that I'm not a slave. Figured that one out a long time ago. Everybody's running around worried about it. Well, they want their free handouts from government. I don't get any handouts from the government. I don't get welfare. I don't want any. No, thank you. Don't want to be dependent. Keep it. I want to be an individual and I want to be free. And that means I don't want Justin Trudeau's handouts, because that's a path to slavery. You don't get anything for free. And if I could, I'd go to a private doctor too. It's just you're not allowed. I could go on about this, but the path to freedom is independence as an individual. The path to freedom is to reassert those individual rights and freedoms within the Constitution and the Charter and the legal language that we already have, that the politicians have figured out ways of getting around by manipulating the court system and manipulating you, manipulating all of us, holding us hostage. Well, what they really do is they hold your health care hostage and your welfare checks hostage and your job. Can't have your job and don't get on a plane or a train or an automobile. In fact, I had someone phone me today and say, hey, we gave you qualified for a free trip. And it's a real thing. I mean, it is a real thing. In the end, you have to pay some money in that. But, you know, it's just the way that it works. But anyway, I said to the lady on the phone, thank you very much, but not interested. Not interested in crossing the border. Not interested in leaving the country. I'm afraid to. I don't want to go because I don't want to deal with the border. I want to remain free where I'm at. So I'm quite content. Now, it's not cool that I am afraid to leave the country. I could, but I'm really more afraid of what's going to happen when I try to come back. Because I don't know what the conditions will be like when I get back because everything's so damn volatile. And I don't want to go in debt for a stupid trip. Don't want to do it. I want to remain independent. I don't want to fly anywhere right now. I'm content. I'll travel where I want to travel in my car, do what I want to do, remain independent. But man, I'll tell you, it's all about focusing on individual rights and freedoms. That's the path. That's the answer. Always has been, always will be. Collectivism sucks because collectivism makes all of us dependent on the system. Collectivism makes you responsible for other people, not for yourself. That's what. Remember, they flipped it upside down. They turned it inside out, made black white and white black. And then they made the white and the black and the yellow and everybody in between fight by dividing us all into little groups through individual identity politics. Because we're individuals, we're divided into little groups, subgroups, and then we were told you have to get the thingy in the arm and wear your mask to protect your neighbor. No, I need to protect myself and take care of myself so I don't get sick. And then I'm healthy enough to help my neighbor. And if my neighbor's worried about getting sick, then my neighbor's free to lock down. And if I'm not afraid of getting sick, I should be free to go out into my yard or a park or walk down the beach or go to a store. Nobody's forcing anybody to go to the store, and you could always have home delivery, and there's all kinds of other options, but no, they wanted to lock us all down. Individual rights and freedoms. You decide for yourself. It's like when the airplane's going down and the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling of the aircraft and your mask falls down in front of you. What do? First thing you do is put your mask on. Don't try to put everybody else's mask on for them. Put yours on first. Save yourself. Then you've got the oxygen, you can breathe, and now you can help the people around you while you can breathe. And you can keep on breathing and keep on helping people. It's the same thing with, everything's flipped upside down right now. Everybody's like, what can I get for free? What's the government going to do for me? No. It's like, what do you have to do to take care of yourself so you're not a burden on the system? You become self-sufficient. You become prosperous, and then you can help others. Take care of yourself. Charity begins at home. Take care of your own house. Clean up your own room and help thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Make your community a better place, but you got to take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself, then you become a burden on others and contribute to your community in a positive way as an individual. Do what you need to do. Don't sit there and expect to be taken care of with welfare checks and have the government nurse you along from cradle to grave. That's the problem with our society. And that's honestly the problem, I think, in my opinion, so many damn people. I want my freedom. Where's my welfare check? I want my freedom. Where's my free health care? I want my freedom. Where's my free this and free that and snow tires and air conditioning is a right. Is it? Is it really? Is air conditioning a right? Because I hear that sometimes from people. I grew up without air conditioning. I never had air conditioning when I was a kid. I didn't have air conditioning until I got older. No air conditioning in the car, no air conditioning in the house. You know what air conditioning was? Opening the window. We survived. Don't care. Don't need it. It's not a right. That's the problem, people. It's my right for this and it's my right for that. Is it? Rights, very defined things and limited, by the way. Limited by society, justifiably so. I don't have the right to just kill somebody. We can talk more about that. I was going to talk about it more tonight with Fred the Freedom Fish over there, but he keeps hiding. So I thought it wasn't going to be, I have to move stuff around in his Fishtopia tank so we can explore these larger political issues of Fred the Freedom Fish and this metaphoric political exercise that I've set up. But he's hiding under the freedom truck. Keeps hiding under there. And I'm like, are you alive? And he jostled a little. You put something, and he comes up and he swims around, but then he goes and hides again. So he's kind of camera shy these days, but still alive and kicking and doing well. Anyway, we'll get more into that. But I'm just, it bums me out, man. It really does. Like freedom people, I don't know. I think back and everybody was like, yeah, we were like, that's what we were focused on. That's what I was focused on. That was what getting me all jacked up, man, was the government just stomping all over the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, locking people down, using Section 1 of the Charter in Canada, stomping all over the rights of people down in the U.S., depending on what state you were in. It was worse, in some places than in others. Florida, not as bad as it was, say, in, New York. But holy Toledo, I don't know what was going on there, but man, what's going on now? It's like people don't even really talk about that stuff, but it hasn't been fixed. So if this thing comes back, don't come complaining to me when they lock us all down again. Oh, you can, because I'm going to be complaining too. I get it. But you know what I'm saying? It's like that is the issue. That's what we need to be focused on, folks. That same damn issue. Not about, whether it's not even about whether the damn vaccine is effective or isn't effective. I mean, it is, but it isn't. There's a single damn thing, just a single damn thing that we need to focus on. It's the right to say no. Period. You solve that, you solve the damn problem. I hear people who want to tear down the whole government. For what? One thing. One damn thing. The right to say no. We had it. And then they bastardized the Constitution. They bastardized the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They twisted it. Ignored it. Don't care. People supported it because why? Fear. Information warfare, and we let them do it to us. Well, I didn't. You probably didn't. But the majority, the vast majority of people did. That's the issue. It's one damn thing. And everybody's like, I don't know how to solve the problem. What are we going to do? The WEF, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know. It's one damn thing. Section 1 of the Charter. Gotta go. So the government can't do it to us again. One damn thing. One. Go ahead to your flag wags. Go protest on your overpasses. Do whatever the hell you want. Apply pressure in a variety of ways. But it's one damn thing. One. They don't want you to look at it. Even that wording in that legislation in Quebec. You solve the one damn thing I'm talking about, that goes away. One damn thing. Take your UFOs and stuff them up your yin yang. One damn thing. Hasn't anybody else figured it out? It's one damn thing. The right to say no. Figure it out. You get your freedom back. But with that freedom comes responsibility. You ready for that? I'm already there, folks. Come on over. The water's fine.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
There it is.
Okay, so you remember I said there was like this mania, craziness that is taking hold, that there's like a mental illness issue? I don't know, man. I don't know if this is news either, but I'm going to say it is. Came across this. This is in Vegas, which is a pretty crazy town. I actually kind of like Vegas. I don't gamble. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I like going to Vegas to walk around and look at the pretty lights. That's about it. I like the just the excitement, the atmosphere in the air. I can't even like walking through the casinos, just listening to the ringing of the slot machines. Feels like I'm in a video arcade when I'm a kid again. But this is just a fight with a bunch of people in Vegas. I don't know.
Calm down. Get up.
Off a wheelchair, dude?
Let go.
Go.
Dude, this shit is crazy.
Like, what happened to the clothes?
On a wheelchair, dude?
What's wrong with folks?
Get away.
Like, what happened to her pants?
Calm down. Get up.
Off a wheelchair, dude?
Let go.
I don't know. Every day there's crap like that on there. I guess, you know what? That's the thing about social media, though. It amplifies everything, right? Because everybody has a phone. So you can capture all kinds of things on video and in photos. Anytime, anywhere, there's always somebody there with a phone, and then it ends up on social media. So maybe it just makes things seem worse than they are because you see everything now, and it's you get the highlights and everything. And it's occurred to me that one of the reasons people are going crazy has become a movie. We're being presented a version of reality through the internet that isn't really real. And so reality in itself becomes a construct. They kind of create this false reality. It's fake reality online because it's not really doesn't give you a proper perspective of what's going on in the real world. When I walk out my door and I stand on my front lawn and I look up at the sky, that's reality. I look at a tree and there's a tree, and then I see my neighbor over, and that's reality. But what I see on the screen, it is maybe a representation of what was real, but it's condensed. So you see things in an amplified way. And then they can take things that might have some grain of truth to it, and they can amplify that to get you jacked up and upset. And they can even create a reality that can convince you that something is real simply by talking about it online and social media through video. I've been thinking a lot about it. Maybe too much, but maybe not enough, because it's part of the information warfare that's directed against all of us all the time now, from all sides, by the way. It's not just one side doing it, it's all sides, all political side. They're all trying to convince you of one thing or another to get you to behave